Welcome to the latest edition of Beyond the Arc. I'm John Gonzalez alongside our NBA insider, Bill Ryder. And Bill, busy weekend this weekend, but I trust that you took in some soccer. Your team won, Barca won, producer Aaron, Liverpool team won. I went and watched Arsenal beat Aston Villa. That was a good game. We should encourage everybody, by the way. We have good soccer stuff here at CBS Sports. Go check out the Glosso Network. They do a great job. But yeah, you watch some soccer?
Barca, look, we can't register players and everybody's injured, but we're 2-0. We got all 6 points. Let's go. And happy, I went to Mark Medina's wedding, fellow NBA person along with you and I. Beautiful wedding in Pasadena. Congratulations to Mark and congratulations to Barca, baby. And by the way, Liverpool.
In that order, or which order are you putting it in?
No, congratulations, Barcelona first, and then just close second. Way to go, Medina.
Close second. Congrats, Mark.
You did it, buddy.
That's amazing. We're happy for Mark, and it's summer, so we start with a little soccer talk. But we were trying to think of some things to do, and we decided we're going to go through the over-unders. This is always a fun exercise.
I love this.
So we're going to do over the next 2 weeks the Eastern Conference over-unders. And then next week, you're going to take us through the Western Conference over-unders. I always like doing this myself as an exercise. And then on the show, it'll helps everybody update where we think teams are. But we're going to do part 1 of the Eastern Conference over-unders today, Tuesday. And then on Thursday, we'll have part 2. So starting in the Eastern Conference, we're going to go through alphabetical order, Bill. We're going to start with the Atlanta Hawks, who are kind of unknowable. Their over-under this season is 35.5. Last year, they won 36 games. They finished 10th in the East. They lost the play-in to the Bulls. They end up trading away DeJounte Murray. They decide to stay with Trae Young. And I don't know, they end up with the first pick, and they take Reece Shea, and away we go, I guess. Where are you on this team?
All right, so Reece Shea is going to be a project at best and not a guarantee.
In the Summer League.
Yeah, but you're right. But as you know, Summer League does not necessarily indicate future performance in either direction. I'm not very high. I'm not a big Trae Young guy. Look, I like Quinn Snyder a lot as a head coach. I still find it's been a minute now, perplexing that a year and a half ago, he took this job basically at the end of a regular season. He could have had better gigs. I'm going to say this a lot. These numbers are always really close to the margins because Vegas is really, really good at what they do. It feels like an under to me. I think that you have to play your number 1 pick. He has to develop. You've got to get him minutes. I don't think Trae Young is oversimplification. I don't think he's a winner. I think he's a talent. I know that at least in the past, those guys haven't really clicked with Trae and maybe the way you need to on your best player on a team. And I'd rather have Murray. I would rather have Murray than Trae if I'm trying to sort of grind out 40 wins. I'll go under. It's not with a lot of confidence, but I just don't think they're going to be very good.
Yeah, they weren't very good last year, and I'm with you. I'd rather have DeJounte Murray because we saw what happened when Trae Young got hurt, and it was just DeJounte Murray running the team, and all of a sudden their defense, which was among the worst in the NBA last season, if not the worst during it, all of a sudden leaped into the middle of the pack. And I think that says a lot. But then I look at the rest of the team and I'm like, all right, I'm not a Clint Capella guy. They've been trying to get him off the team for a while. Dyson Daniels is a useful piece. Larry Nance Jr. is a useful piece, which is part of the reason why he keeps getting shipped all around the NBA. But these aren't star players. Jalen Johnson, probably their best player. But he can't be the best guy. He can be a useful piece, a very good piece. But I don't think you can build a team around him. So I'd love to see Clint Capella go out and get a Yeke and Kongu in there. And there's a lot of things that I would do with this team. I'm with you that they're not very good. Again, they won 36 games. The over-under is 35.5. I think they're going to be right there again, Bill. I think this over-under is correct because after that, I think basically we're going to end up with the same 10 teams in the playoffs and the play-in again in the Eastern Conference. I'm looking at it now because after the Hawks, it gets really grim, right? You end up with the Nets, the Raptors, the Hornets, the Wizards, and the Pistons. I don't think any of those teams are going to be better than the Hawks. I guess I'll go over, but not by much.
You think it's 37 wins? Maybe they're 37 or 38?
Yeah, I think they're going to be exactly what they were last year.
My hesitation as it relates to if you're betting this is exactly what you're talking about as it relates to the playoffs. It's not the Western Conference. There are a handful of really bad basketball teams.
Yes.
Do you think Do you think that Atlanta is going to be better than Toronto?
That's the one that I thought, okay,
Yeah,
going to be a team that can move ahead of them. The only team that I think would
that's
be
the one.
Toronto, but I think Atlanta is a better team. I mean, they do
Yeah,
have pieces. I think they have more depth too, and their top line talent I think is better. I like Scotty Barnes a lot, and
I do
RJ
too.
coming off of a really good Olympics, and I have been an RJ Barrett skeptic for quite some time. Emmanuel Quickly, he got paid this offseason, but I still think the Hawks. So a slight over for me
Do,
on.
do you want to do individual picks, or do we have to agree as a show? What's the?
No, we're going to do individual picks, and then maybe next year we'll
All right.
go back and revisit these. Yeah,
Okay, got it.
and I'm saying this with a caveat for any of you who are taking this as gambling advice. Please do not. This is me and Bill. Maybe Bill wants to say that his end of it is gambling.
Yeah, I know.
I'm a terrible gambler.
So similar thing, but I think you totally take this as gambling advice and fade me. Just like
go the other way.
Aggressively.
Go the other way.
I run really well in the NFL for ironically.
Okay.
And I don't. So I used to do gambling content here at CBS. So they'd have me gamble. I actually bet on NBA games, and it was like very 47%, 40. It wasn't good. I lost. Now I'm not really supposed to do that. So this is just informational. But if you're looking to make money, no guarantees. Fade the hell out of me. So you should take the over on Atlanta. And if John is on the other side, it's like a double fade me.
Slight over. Mid 36, right on the number. All right, let's move on to the Boston Celtics. Their over-under this season is 58.5, Bill. This one actually kind of surprised me. Last year, obviously, best record in the NBA. They went 64-18, first in the Eastern Conference, ended up as NBA champions. They win banner number 18. They were first in offense, second in defense. They return everybody. Jason Tatum got paid over the offseason. Derek White got paid. Sam Hauser got paid. They're deep into the second apron. They don't care. The worst thing that happened to this team this offseason, we laughed about it, was Jason Tatum going to the Olympics and being kind of just like a decoration. Derek White getting added to the team. Jaylen Brown not getting added to the team and clearly being upset about it. And like, who knows, maybe there's like a little palace intrigue, Kremlinology that we can get into. But I think on the whole, 1 through 5, throw in 1 through 6 if you want to go Al Horford, the best team in the NBA. Yes. So what do you make of them being like 6 games under what they were for last year?
So all right. So Pat Riley, disease of Moorism, maybe is baked in a little bit more. You just don't have the same intensity, right? And then the criminology that you just talked about, trying to read the body language of Jaylen and Tatum. But I also think a factor here, and I'm not trying to rizz you up here, as the kids say, I think the Sixers have a potential to be markedly better. I think that the Knicks have the chance to be markedly better. And I think you and I are probably aligned that we're not putting Doc Rivers on our early season Coach of the Year predictions. But Milwaukee, if they can be healthy and have a whole season where Lillard and Giannis play together, like maybe so maybe the East is more challenging. Maybe there's a worldview where there are just some games in there that should be more difficult when Boston plays that sort of cluster of teams.
I think that's fair. I think the East is going to be better. I mean, we talked about there are some really bad teams in the Eastern Conference, but I would say, the first 7, throw in 8 if you want to go the Miami Heat, although I'm less bullish on them this season, but for sure the first 7.
You still like the Magic?
That's the team I like to take the biggest jump this season in the Eastern Conference, and we'll get to them in a little bit. But we should also mention, as producer Aaron has in the Chiron here, it's not like Vegas is down on the Celtics. 58.5 is the highest over under for any team in the NBA. So this is still a big bar to clear, but I think it's pretty low considering where they were last year. I mean, it's not like anybody got hurt. They didn't lose anybody. Ostensibly KP is going to be back and healthy. Yeah, you get an extra year of Al Horford being older, but I don't know. As your 6th guy, I love Al Horford. I'm going to go over on this, and I think pretty comfortably.
So they won 57 games a couple years ago, 51 the year before that. I mean, they're not the same team. I'm just trying to. Here's the thing. This is where I mind bleep myself, because Vegas plays game, right? Like and over-under is a little bit different, but they do try to induce certain bets in certain directions. You gotta stay healthy. You gotta be lucky. But they're not winning 64 games, but 59, 60 wins
60
feels
games.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you going over?
Still a really good season. I am reluctantly going over. It's a reluctant over.
Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, all the things that you mentioned are fair. The Knicks are going to be better. The Sixers, in theory, should be better. The Eastern Conference on the whole should be better. Average win total for the Eastern Conference last year, just under 40. But the Celtics were so far and away clearly the best team. And returning everybody and knowing how you play, maybe there's like a slight hangover from a championship. You get your first,
Which happens.
you know how good you are. You cruise
Yeah.
control a little bit through the regular season because you know it's all about the playoffs. And once the playoffs hit, you're going to be all right. But I'm still going to go over. I think 60 wins is pretty comfortable for them.
Yeah, I actually think the things you brought up about sort of the drama in the offseason, the Olympics, and the chips on the shoulders of, for different reasons, Tatum and Brown, that can also counteract being lackadaisical and insouciant and sort of like, I already won. Because if Tatum feels like he has something to prove, no respect, wasn't really an MVP candidate, wasn't the finals MVP, and if Brown feels like he has something to prove because he was the finals MVP, and so like there's a world where maybe both those guys individually are like, to hell with all these doubters. I'm going to show everybody and have a career year.
Yeah, that's interesting. It could go either way there, right? I mean, you could have Tatum go, man, the Olympics did not go great, and I was getting clowned on, and I'm going to go show everybody. Or maybe it's in his head a little bit. And same with Jaylen Brown. Although I think Jaylen, if I was going to pick somebody who would use it as motivation, it would be Jaylen Brown. Before we go to break, Did you see the crazy workouts that he was doing this offseason in the pool where he was like upside down with like a mask and weights and stuff? Like, Joakim Noah used to do that stuff only without the mask.
Oh, that's a name I haven't thought of in a minute.
He would get like a giant boulder and sink himself to the bottom of a pool.
And somebody else did weird. It was somebody random. Might have been Kyle Korver who would like swim with sharks one year and then would mountain climb. Like, bro, that's not training. You're just doing weird adventure vacations.
Yeah.
Basketball training.
I like it, though. I mean, thinking outside the box. All right, we're going to take a break. We've got 2 teams down. We're going to do, I think, 7 or 8 teams. On the other side, so the Boston Celtics, obviously, very good. We expect that the Brooklyn Nets will not be very good. In fact, probably going to be very bad. We'll talk about the Knicks. On the other side, it's John and Bill hanging out. This is Beyond the Arc.
Jump into this week's unforgettable moments, electrifying action, and pure football passion with the Inside College Football Team.
All right, welcome back to Beyond the Arc. John and Bill breaking down the Eastern Conference over-unders. Moving on to the Brooklyn Nets, Bill. Last year, 32-50, 11th in the East. They are in full fire sale mode, open for business, I would anticipate. As you know, they move on from Mikal Bridges. They get 5 first-round picks for him. 32 wins last year. Over-under this time around, 19.5. That's the lowest in the NBA. I mean, well, they now we all know what they're doing, right? I mean, expect that, they re-signed Nick Claxton, but all of a sudden now Cam Thomas could be gone, Cam Johnson could be gone, Dorian Finney-Smith could be gone. They're clearly like trying to target Cooper Flag, optimize their odds. They got to get a lot of guys off their books though first because I think that right now they might have slightly too much talent, which is kind of crazy to say. 19.5 is not many wins. That's like Sixers early process. That's a really bad team.
I mean, last year Detroit won 14 or 15 games, right? And the Wizards won, I think, 14.
Pistons or 14, Wizards 15.
Wizards 15. So it's attainable. Like if you can be. So I think they'll move guys, and I'm gonna. All right. So I'm gonna go under. Like to me, it is a lot easier. If your goal is to lose, it's a lot easier to pull that off than if your goal is to win. This is that we know what their goal is. It's to get as few wins as possible. Yeah. They can accomplish it. And if you're going to aim to be the worst team in the NBA, you can easily hit 14, 15, 16, 17 wins. And then you can get lucky enough if you're betting the under for guys to get injured and things to go wrong even beyond the plan. So I will go under.
I think I'm going to go under 2 because you're right. It's easier to tank than it is to clear the bar and actually win. I mean, like if you can sit guys, you can stagger minutes. Oh, all of a sudden, like, hey, we haven't found a landing spot for Cam Johnson yet, but he's got a real nagging hamstring injury and we're going to bring him back pretty slowly here. It is kind of crazy though. I guess they have time, but it is a little surprising to me that they didn't move Dorian Finney-Smith and Cam Johnson during the offseason. I wondered, because where are you on Cam Thomas? because I think so, like he's a little bit of a Rorschach test where some guys look at him and go, instant offense, wouldn't he be awesome as a six man? Doesn't really play defense at all. I just wonder what kind of market they might have for him, or if they like him and might want to keep him. I don't know.
I mean, maybe they like him too. I'm not a huge fan, and I think those guys are, I don't know about a dime a dozen, but we're at a point in the NBA where playing defense is pretty important, and having guys that can contribute is fairly significant if you want to be successful. My only hesitation about the under, because you're right, there is talent on there. It's not even the talent on the team. They can move on from those guys, and you can be so demoralized even if you're mediumly, right, if you have a little more talent than you should for 19.5 wins, is how bad some of the other teams are in the Eastern Conference. But those teams at least, and I know we're going to hit them, and we talked Atlanta already, they're going to at least have a little bit of – there's more talent on every other basketball team, I think, than this Nets team. Like, Trae Young is a more talented basketball player than the guys that remain, even if he's not much of a winner. So I think there's they can lose games, the Nets, to bad teams, even if they don't move some of these pieces, they probably want to and maybe will by the deadline.
Yeah, producer Aaron brings this up. Like, I'm with you. I think that, if you're trying to tank, that's an easier accomplishment than actually trying to win. But there's several teams in the Eastern Conference that we know are going to be purposefully bad, right? The Nets, the Wizards, the Pistons. The Bulls are horrendous. We're about to talk about the Charlotte Hornets, who I never believe in. All of these teams are trying to optimize their odds for Cooper Flag. So maybe they run it like it's
so funny.
Yeah, like a March game between the Wizards and the Nets is going to be an absolute rock fight. Moving on, we're both under on the Nets, though, right? We're under. Okay.
Yep.
Charlotte Hornets, 21-61 last year. Nothing good happened for the Charlotte Hornets last year, except for Brandon Miller. I actually am pretty high on Brandon Miller.
He was great.
His favorite player growing up was Paul George. You can see the comps. He knows how to play basketball. He's always in the right position. He does the little things that I like really well. And then also, like, as a rookie on a team that had completely cratered last year, he really showed some flashes. Beyond that, I don't like pretty much anything that has been happening in Charlotte for forever. Over under here, 29.5. They changed
the big jump too.
It's a big jump from 21 to 29. I want to know, you tell me. You look at this team. I know they're getting LaMelo Ball back. They've got Salon that they drafted. They're trying to get Cooper Flag. Mark Williams ostensibly will be healthy, and I think he actually is a pretty good player. They re-signed Miles Bridges. I don't know how that equates to 8 more wins.
All right, so I'm a huge LaMelo fan. If he plays, I think like the guy is a great. For me, is how many games is LaMelo playing?
How many? Yeah,
20, 50. 73, because as you noted, there's so many bad. Charlotte is better than all the would-be tanking teams. They're better than the Wizards. They're better than Atlanta. They're better than Detroit. They're better than whoever I'm forgetting. Like, they are better than those teams if LaMelo Ball's on the floor, in large part because you're right. Brandon Miller's great, and what he got drafted 3, right, after Scoot. Mm-hmm. Like, that was kind of one. No. There's also like, I think
he was.
Did he go
2? Scoot was 3, and he was 2. I think.
Second. Yeah, that's right. You're right. I mean, so I did not realize he was going to be that good when he came out.
I didn't either. I didn't think he was going to be.
You have 2 youngish. He's young, LaMelo youngish. I think great basketball players, and I still think LaMelo can be outstanding if he's healthy. So, like, what do I want to bet on LaMelo Ball's health? The answer is nothing. I don't want to bet on LaMelo Ball's health at all. Yeah. It's just a pass. But I think they can get there. I'm going to get all of these wrong. Wherever you're watching fade, every one of these bets, I'm going over. I'm going over
on the Hornets.
Magic time in Charlotte, 30 wins.
This one was one of the ones that, in addition to the team we're going to get to next, the Chicago Bulls, that like kind of stood out to me because it is such a significant increase from what they did last year. And I think maybe Vegas is looking at it going, all right, yeah, LaMelo Ball is going to be back healthy. Mark Williams is going to be back healthy. Miles Bridges is signed now. Brandon Miller maybe takes a step. You are 1,000% right. Of the bad teams in the Eastern Conference, this team, along with, say, the Toronto Raptors, probably has the most talent of the bad teams. I just think increasing your win total by 9 games is a lot. So I'm going to go under on this just because it's just such a leap. And significantly, as you mentioned, how much am I relying on LaMelo Ball?
I am relying a lot for the over.
They are. I cannot because I haven't seen it yet. And I critically, I want to see what he looks like playing as much of a full season as possible next to Brandon Miller, because at some point, I think that they should complement each other. But like, does LaMelo Ball?
I think they will.
running mate. Like, let's see how this goes.
Will this change your mind? I talked to LaMelo's dad a while back, and everything's great. He tells me everything's fine, John.
Is Lonzo ever going to play again?
Everything's great, John.
Everything's great in the Ball family.
There's some news out that he's doing well and his sort of like. I worry that Alonzo. It's a worry that he won't. Right? Like it feels like, and that's a significant thing. Yeah.
Fingers crossed for all the balls. I'm going to go under on the Hornets. You're going to go over. Brings us to Lonzo's team currently, the Chicago Bulls, who are the most mismanaged team in the NBA. If you've listened to us, you've heard me absolutely crush the Chicago Bulls front office for just being an absolute dumpster fire. And they move on from Alex Caruso and they get no picks back in exchange for Josh Giddey from a team that has all the picks. Makes no sense for me. But 39-43 last year, 9th in the Eastern Conference. This year, Bill, and as I mentioned, this was sort of an eye popper for me. 27.5. That is a massive dip on the Vegas odds here for the Chicago Bulls.
Obviously, I think there's an open question. I don't know the answer. I know people I've talked to don't know the answer. Are Chicago really going to sell? Are they really going to unload what remains?
It's hilarious that we're even asking.
Of course they should, but they're idiots. But Vegas thinks
hilarious.
Vegas thinks they are because that is a insane. You don't think Josh Giddey can just whatever's there, go in the promised land?
I think Josh Giddey with the ball in his hand and like just a ton of usage where he doesn't have to where he doesn't have to, really share the ball or take a step back from like SGA and Jalen Williams and, Chet Holmgren and like he needs the ball in his hands. Now, the question is, Kobe White had a good season last year. You know who else needs the ball in his hands? Kobe White, right? You're also getting back Zach LaVine, ball usage monster. I don't love that. They signed Patrick
for 27 wins? Those three guys can get you to 27 if they're there the whole season.
They could.
Is LaVine there the whole season?
Well, that's the question. You're almost certainly going to have to attach a pick to get somebody to take him, right?
Yes,
at least because he's still got that bloated contract. And by the way, Vooch is still there too. They haven't moved on from him either. And he's not the Nikola Vucevic that he used to be, but if he was like 25 minutes a game on a good team, you'd be thrilled with that.
If we were talking 43 wins and you were describing these players, I would be with you like this is a disaster. But in the context of 27 and a half wins with a handful of really bad Eastern Conference teams and Giddey, I don't understand the number. I don't either. I'm going to go over is the answer. I'm going to go over because do I think they're going to they're what they've always been. They're sort of like a perennial 9 or 10 or not quite 9 or 10 play-in team.
Super middle of the pack.
Yeah, and there'll be injuries and there'll be dysfunction and the guys won't get along, but they're good enough to win some games. If you're 27 and a half is a striking number.
I think the number is set by one, as you mentioned, do we think some of these players are going to get moved on? And clearly the odds makers do think that. And do we think that this team will be trying to win and compete and like get into the play-in, or are they going to like just sort of soft tank this thing? At 27 and a half wins though, with the talent that they currently have on the roster, look, this is a lower number than the Charlotte Hornets. The odds makers think Charlotte will be better than the Bulls this season. I have a hard time seeing that. I think they kind of just like stumble. This is a team that like face plants all the time. I think they're going to face plant their way just past 27. I'm going to go with you and take the over. I don't feel great about it.
30-42.
Sure. That's about right.
I did the math wrong. 30-52.
The Chicago Bulls are so bad. They really need to tank that thing. We're going to take another break, and then we're going to get into some other teams that, hey, they could be good this season, but how good could they maybe be? That's the Cleveland Cavaliers. We'll talk about them next on the other side. This is Beyond the Arc.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back to Beyond the Arc. A reminder to find us wherever you get your favorite podcast. Please download, subscribe, and leave a review. All right, the Cleveland Cavaliers, Bill. Weird year for them last year. 48 wins, fourth in the East, kind of tanked their way into that spot because they were targeting the Orlando Magic, and it was like really important for them to get a first round win because I guess they figured that would sell Donovan Mitchell on staying. And like, I thought that was stupid, but
because it was stupid.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if
Right.
these two things are linked or not, but Donovan Mitchell does sign a 3-year extension for $150 million. Jared Allen got paid. He got a 3-year extension, $91 million max. And then Evan Mobley, that was the one that I thought was a little interesting. Like, would you give Evan, if it was just merit-based, before we get into this win-loss thing here, it was just merit-based, would you have given Evan Mobley the 5-year max? Because,
Yes.
it's a guy that they draft, and he's got upside, but he did kind of plateau last year. And under the old rules, you automatically max those guys, but you would have maxed him anyway.
So, first of all, I'm not sure there's like a fit with him and Allen, but yes, the answer is yes, because I bring this up a lot, but so I had this conversation once with Jim Jackson. I was like, what is the least desirable NBA city in America? And he told me Portland 1, Cleveland 2 for a lot of guys. And I just started asking NBA players, like, what is the worst NBA city? And most people, to my surprise, answer Cleveland. Right? Because it's like Cleveland's not as small as Oklahoma City or as isolated as Portland. So I just think in what may be the hardest, certainly one of the 3 hardest franchises in America to get guys to go play at, and there's no LeBron now. Yeah, I think you pay anybody who's there who has a semblance of upside. Yeah,
that's a really good point. I'm with you that Evan Mobley and Jared Allen, I'm not sure about the fit there, but now you have Kenny Atkinson, and I think like Kenny and Jared were together in Brooklyn, and I really like Kenny Atkinson. I think he's a smart guy, and I think he's smart enough to understand that this is not really rocket science. Stagger your bigs, stagger your 2 guards between Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell. Maybe you're closing with both of them, but for the majority of the game, have one of those 2 on the floor, one of the 2 bigs on the floor, and surround them with shooters, and away you go. And JB really didn't do that last year, and it's notable that when Darius Garland got hurt last year, and Evan Mobley was hurt last year, and they had Donovan Mitchell and Jared Allen out there, that all of a sudden they had that 18 wins and however many stretch. So 48 wins for them last year, 4th in the East, could have been better. Over under here set basically at the exact same number, 48.5.
All right, so I'm really excited to go 1-14 on these picks in the Eastern Conference, with my one being correct, the Boston Celtics.
You're in that group, right? With the Magic, the Pacers, the Bucks. That's kind of their level, you think?
You ever had a friend that everybody tells you really shouldn't be friends with, and then you realize years later the guy was a total a-hole, but you just you didn't see it right? I have that with certain teams and certain players. I have loved Cleveland for the last 3 years. And when Donovan Mitchell came in, I was like, okay, this is where they elevate. So I'm past believing that they're going to win multiple playoff series. That ship has sailed. The East is too tough, but I'm going to go over on their total because I do think I think Kobe Altman, the GM, has done a nice job for Cleveland putting together a post-LeBron roster to be, in the top 6, right? Like, I think that's an accomplishment in Cleveland. I think they have the right coach now. Again, it's in the margins. It's really close, but can they win 50 games? I think they can win 50 games this year. Yeah, I'll go over.
I think they could too. But like I said, they're in that middle group because tier-wise, I really think it's the Celtics obviously first, and then the Knicks and the Sixers right behind them battling. I go back and forth with the Bucks. I could see the Bucks maybe being in that group with the Knicks and the Sixers, but I also think they're probably closer to the Cavs, the Magic, and the Pacers. I'm going to go under. I don't think it's a big under.
Okay.
It's a little under just because of, you're really selling me on the Eastern Conference, that those 7 teams being even 8 if we throw in the Heat. But again, how many games is Jimmy Butler playing? Just being better this year and more competitive. And the Cavs last year, I don't know. Like their upside, they're just a solid team, but I don't know that their floor is high, but their ceiling I don't think is. It's a little bit lower.
The Pacers could make a leap. The Bucks can make a leap. Yeah. And by the way, at 48, this is the kind of line where a couple games that you barely win or lose could make the difference.
Sure.
They're going to be right in that range.
Well, look what happened last year, right? Where the Magic, the Pacers, and the Sixers all finished with 47 wins, and for reasons surpassing understanding, the NBA tiebreaker is division winner that nobody cares about. So the Magic ended up with that seed, and then the Sixers ended up falling down into the play-in against the Heat. So like a game or 2 on either side could be critical was last year could really be big this year with more teams jockeying for position. All right, last one before we wrap up part one of our Eastern Conference over-unders. The Detroit Pistons. Just an absolute trash.
There's some bad teams at the top of this thing, by the way.
Really,
there are some bad teams in the East.
Really bad teams. Only won 14 games last year. I struggle to figure out how they did that. Worst record in the NBA. They were 27th in offense, 25th in defense. They have so much money, Bill, that Tobias Harris signed 2 years for $50 million. They're basically positioning themselves as a contract dumping ground. So, hello, Zach LaVine. I hope you like Detroit. Trajan Langdon takes over in the front office for Troy Weaver, and then JB Beckerstaff moves over from Cleveland to take over for Monty, who's just going to put his feet up for the remainder of his 4-year deal. It was 5 years. He served 1, and he gets 4 more. The draft,
unbelievable.
I don't know. There's some nice young talent that I'm interested in. 25.5 feels like a big jump.
Huge jump. I mean, that is, as you noted, is that the biggest 11.5? Is that the biggest jump in either direction we've done yet? It's close.
If
it's not.
So
yeah. I think a lot of these have been 9 or 10. I mean, look, this is the easiest. It's an under. I mean, it's 25.5.
So, okay, we think Cade is good, right? Cade's good.
But I'm not sure that he's great.
Shocked.
I mean,
I don't know that he's great.
Is he good?
Well, what about Ivy and Duran? Like, if both of those guys can be good as well, now you've got like 3 young guys who you're like kind of excited about, right? And Ron Holland, another Rorschach test. Some people think that he was the steal of the draft, and some people think he's not going to be good at all. But if he's anything at all, and also Asar Thompson, I keep banging this drum. I'm going to do a little bit more.
Asar Thompson, you love him.
He was good, and then Monty mothballed him.
Yeah, that was weird. Yeah, Ivy and Duran, you had the right term though, kind of. I mean, that is exact. Are they good? Kind of. It's also a demoralizing place to play, and nothing has happened in the office. Maybe a new head coach, but I don't think so. Nothing has happened that if you're this group of young guys, you feel good about going to work. You feel good about your chances. I mean, what makes you think that these guys are going to make leaps as a team, let alone individuals, to be 12 games better? Then again, we can go back to how bad the Eastern Conference is, but it's not bad enough that that's just too big to buy it.
What about Tobias growing roots in the corner, just shooting corner threes, not playing too hard?
Yeah, exactly. I've seen him miss those as if he was a Philly fan again and again and again. I mean, do you really think that this has a team that's in striking distance of winning 30 games? I don't. I mean, they're going to double their win total?
Yeah, it's rough. I will say I am rooting for former Sixer Tobias Harris as well as former Sixer Paul Reed, who ended up landing with the Pistons. Paul Reed's a nice dude. Didn't end up working out for them, for him in Philadelphia. But I'm with you. I'll take the under on this. And I don't also, are they trying to win? I mean, isn't this another season where you could say, hey, let's punt it one more time, and who knows, maybe we get lucky with the lottery balls?
I mean, especially with the new front office. Like that's a good point. That's another thing, is that you have a new head of the front office who's not on the hook for any of these guys developing. If any of these dudes don't work out, it's not on Langdon. So yes, I think you're right. The front office is incentivized to do whatever they need to do for the future without any of the blame of why they're in trouble. And so tanking, if that's where it gets to, becomes a lot easier.
Yeah, one more. And they're not going anywhere this season anyway. All right, before we wrap up part one of the Eastern Conference over-unders, let's do our best bet from part one. What's the one you are not confident in any of them, but of the ones you're not confident in, which one are you most not confident in?
We haven't even done all of the teams in the East, and I already worried I'm going to go 1-14, but the one is the over on the Boston Celtics. I don't think they're winning 64 games again, but the number was low enough that they get to 60, 61, 59 games. Give me Boston. If not a repeat championship, certainly hitting their over.
I also am taking Boston. 58.5 for the best team in basketball last year. That's the defending champion. I know it's the biggest number, but still it feels like that's something like if you were going to say who are you most confident in that can clear that bar, even if, somebody gets hurt or maybe they take their foot off the gas a little bit. Like they just have so many good players. And they've already done it now that I think, 58.5. I'll take Boston as well. Look at that. Already, we're halfway through the Eastern Conference. Part 1 is in the books. We're going to be back at it on Thursday with Eastern Conference over-unders Part 2. You don't want to miss that. But for now, for Bill Reiter, I am John Gonzalez. We thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you on Thursday.